In the early hours of January 27, 2022, a number of smugglers from Syria attempted to cross into Jordan, taking advantage of a severe snowstorm and thick fog that they believed could hide them from law enforcement forces. However, as soon as the Jordanian patrols saw the smugglers approaching the border fence, the smugglers opened fire, and clashes erupted and ended with 27 dead and several wounded among the smugglers. This was the fourth publicly recorded violent clash between Jordanian security forces and smugglers crossing the border from Syria in less than a month, after illegal trafficking activities to Jordan escalated over a long period since the Jabr al-Nassim border crossing was opened in late September 2021. Nevertheless, the high death toll, 27 dead, remains an unprecedented development, and reveals Jordan's serious view of the Syrian drug trade as a serious security threat. More importantly, the incident exposes the expanding scope of smuggling operations that have steadily increased along the Jordanian-Syrian border, with an increase in the number of smugglers adopting more sophisticated methods, supplying advanced weapons and willing to engage in violent clashes. In the wake of these clashes, the Jordanian border guard seized huge quantities of drugs from the smugglers' possession, hidden inside jute bags filled with hashish, cannabis, and an amphetamine-type substance, which became an engine of regional security dynamics, widely marketed under the name Captagon. Captagon is the brand name for a previously legally permitted drug, phenethylene, created by the German drug company Degosa AG in the 1960s to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression and promote weight loss. After phenethylene was scheduled by the World Health Organization in 1986 due to its negative cardiovascular effects and risk of addiction, along with the emergence of safer alternatives on the market, illegal production of this substance was common for a brief period in the Balkan countries during the post-Soviet era. Specifically in Bulgaria, where there are a large number of pharmaceutical factories. Phenethylene gained popularity as the #1 party drug in southern Europe, and it also spread to distant markets in the Persian Gulf as well. Law enforcement campaigns in the Balkans, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, pushed trade toward the Levant and Turkey, closer to consumer markets as demand increased. Syria in particular became a center for Captagon production, due to its close relations with pharmaceutical companies and the scientific community in Bulgaria, which allowed the transfer of technical knowledge and chemical expertise about the relatively feasible Captagon manufacturing process. The outbreak of the Syrian civil war left a huge power vacuum and a deficit in oversight, accountability, law enforcement, and law enforcement efforts, creating an ideal environment for the Captagon trade to flourish. The drug's exhilarating side effects have proven to be attractive to users seeking relief from the psychological and physical trauma created by the violence of war, while also stimulating feelings of great courage and daring that are invaluable from the point of view of armed groups participating in the war on different fronts. Although drug use is banned in Middle Eastern countries, the former Captagon's status as a legitimate pharmaceutical commodity and the lack of intravenous administration provides the drug with a degree of legitimacy in the eyes of users. In the view of many, the drug was seen as an aid to those facing food insecurity and financial uncertainty, thanks to its ability to stave off feelings of hunger and fatigue. Whether inside Syria or in destination markets, Captagon has become a material that meets many needs, a recreational drug for young people that helps them overcome boredom, a safe haven for traumatized war victims, a motivator for fighters in armed groups, and a lifesaver for middle and lower class workers who work long hours and don't know when they can secure their next meal. The networks target a number of Arab and Gulf countries, being the main destination for the smuggling of Captagon. Limited studies have also revealed high rates of consumption and addiction of this drug along the land transit countries for this trade, such as Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq. During the 11 years that the Syrian civil war raged, the chemical composition of Captagon changed significantly. According to the few laboratory analyses made on the chemical composition of the tablets, which are marketed as Captagon, it is noted that since the first decade of the century the composition contains a larger base of amphetamine, and it is no longer recognizable as phenethylene. In addition, chemical analysis identified larger effects of sometimes harmful chemical additives, such as caffeine, quinine, and mineral residues that are incorporated during the pressing process. The possible reason behind the development of the Captagon formula is due to the unavailability of the raw materials for manufacturing, due to the ongoing violence in the country and the relative isolation from foreign drug markets. However, the evolution of Captagon from its original formula, phenethylene, significantly involves cardiovascular health risks, as well as neurological and other chronic health risks for consumers. System involvement. Throughout the war, Captagon was largely produced in small and medium-sized laboratories within residences, former military sites, and abandoned buildings, easy to navigate and difficult for law enforcement to monitor. While the consumption, production, and smuggling of Captagon was associated with ISIS during the mid-2000s, the drug was also traded between a range of state and non-state actors who saw it as a useful alternative source of revenue, such as rebel forces and non-state actors such as Hezbollah and officials loyal to the Syrian state who took advantage of the manufacturing sites located in the areas controlled by the regime. The last 3 years of the Syrian civil war have seen a boom in industrial-sized Captagon shipments, flowing not only to existing consumer markets in the Persian Gulf, but also to new transit sites in the Mediterranean and East Asia. In the years 2020 and 2021 alone, millions of Captagon tablets were seized by customs and law enforcement officials in the ports of the Greek Piraeus, the Italian Salerno, the Egyptian Damietta and Port Said, the Romanian Constanta, and Austrian Salzburg, Nigeria's Abapa, Kwaichung Shipping Complex in Hong Kong, and Klang in Malaysia. The majority of Captagon seizures revealed a slight increase in the volume of individual shipments since 2019, and the seizures often contain tablets worth hundreds of thousands, even millions, and are being smuggled to the ports of transit and destination countries at a greater rate. Captagon dealers have become better able to adapt to law enforcement, and smuggling has become more sophisticated. Tablets are often hidden in consignments with other legitimate products, e.g. grapes, hollowed-out pomegranates and fake plastic oranges, or even live sheep, which can reduce detection and seizure risks, as well as diverting Captagon via legitimate commercial sea routes into transit sites second and third countries to reduce doubts about its source, and often coordination with organized criminal groups in the countries of destination. The large-scale and advanced methods of smuggling indicate a greater production capacity and technical expertise that many non-state actors lack. Although there is no direct official government policy regarding illicit Captagon production, there remains limited evidence of ministry-level knowledge and complicity in trade, as well as active participation in drug production between regime-supported groups and security sectors in regime strongholds. South and along the Syrian-Mediterranean coast. Many of the regime's Captagon production facilities are larger to be able to manufacture millions of tablets cheaply, and are located near state-owned ports such as Latakia, partly leased by Iran, as well as the regime's support networks or the Assad family's close circle, which facilitates the transportation of shipments. It provides legitimate agricultural or industrial materials to conceal disks, and coordinates with armed non-state actors and organized criminal organizations to receive shipments at various stages of the process. A prominent element in Captagon production and smuggling is the Syrian 4th Division, which is supervised by Major General Mar, brother of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, along with the main warlords, who are favored by the Assad family, their cousins, and relatives, and the businessmen involved in operating Syria's transportation and construction system. Pharmaceutical production, shipping, port maintenance, border taxation, the highway toll system, and security relations with non-state allies, such as groups linked to Hezbollah and Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Hezbollah and armed groups backed by the Revolutionary Guards play a supporting role in this trade, by protecting production facilities, supporting smuggling efforts to the Kalamoun Mountains, providing access to foreign ports, such as Beirut port in Lebanon, or facilitating the movement of precursors and additives. Hezbollah is linked to a network of at least 20 smaller-scale Captagon manufacturing sites along the Lebanon-Syria border near major smuggling routes, sites and activities that have been frequently monitored and challenged by Lebanese law enforcement authorities. The geopolitical repercussions. The acceleration of the Captagon trade in a short period of time has increased international interest and pressure on some proxies associated with this trade, but it has also provided the Syrian government with a degree of leverage at the negotiating table, at a time when its neighbors are considering ending Syria's regional isolation and pursuing opportunities for normalization with the Assad regime. Saudi Arabia is intensifying its efforts to combat smuggling and narcotics. An estimated 190 million Captagon tablets, which entered the ports in 2021 alone, acted as an incentive to impose a ban on Lebanese agricultural imports last April, and then on all Lebanese imports in October, in the hope of curbing the Captagon trade. Many large Captagon shipments were routed through Lebanese ports or land routes. However, frequent rates of high-volume Captagon shipments continue to flood the land and sea ports of entry of the Persian Gulf, presenting a major challenge to local law enforcement and customs systems. Moreover, the sudden rise in preemptive violence among smugglers, transiting from Syria, many of whom are linked to armed militias and Iranian-backed proxies, presents a major security challenge for Jordan. The Jordanian army forces and border patrols combated the continuous, sometimes weekly, smuggling operations, which totaled more than 15 million tablets in 2021 alone. While the clashes usually result in casualties among smugglers, the killing of Jordanian officer Captain Muhammad al-Qudayri on January 16, 2022 in violent clashes with about 200 smugglers, prompted Jordan to relax the rules of engagement, allowing security forces to open fire to deter smugglers from using Jordan as a transit route for them. The threat of ongoing violence between Jordanian forces and Syrian smugglers could create uncontrollable pockets of insecurity along the border region and cause large-scale clashes. While the continued rise in smuggling may lead to a temporary or long-term halt in rapprochement efforts with Syria on the part of Jordanian officials. For his part, Lebanon was greatly affected by the Captagon trade, as the recent increase in large-scale international shipments taking place through its land and sea ports, which led to the imposition of a Gulf ban on Lebanese exports. This was an incentive for the Lebanese government to increase oversight and inspection at the ports, and to make arrests among those suspected of being involved in the Captagon trade, such as Hassan Dika, a Lebanese businessman linked to the 4th Division in Syria and Hezbollah and who is widely known as the King of Captagon. involved in a Captagon shipment that was seized in March 2021 bound for the Malaysian port of Klang. Some of the recent Lebanese seizures had a positive impact on the Lebanese-Gulf relations. A major seizure in December 2021 prompted Kuwait and Lebanon to agree to enhance security cooperation and exchange information on the Captagon trade. However, although Lebanese law enforcement authorities have taken a series of steps to crack down on the domestic Captagon trade, the country's continued use as a transit site for smuggling, along with Hezbollah's significant political and security influence in Lebanon, continues to harm these efforts. Damascus, in turn, has benefited from the waning level of accountability, while responding to increased international attention to the size and scope of the Captagon shipments. Despite the continued flow of industrial-sized Captagon shipments from the Syrian regime-controlled ports and production centers in Latakia and Daraa, the regime's security forces made a rare interception of a large Captagon shipment hidden inside pasta packages intended for shipment to the Gulf in November 2021, accusing competing actors in rebel-held territories act as the primary agents of trade. Additionally, despite public